We are live with Rewind-A-Dynamite. John Pollock here alongside Mr. Wai Ting, just minutes after AEW Dynamite came to its conclusion from Norfolk, Virginia. How are you tonight, Wai?
I'm doing pretty well, John. How are you?
I'm doing tremendous.
Tremendous. Okay.
Outstanding.
I buy it. I believe it.
I'm on a high. I'm doing great. We have lots to discuss on tonight's show. We're going to be getting to all of the Dynamite happenings, and we will be getting to your feedback as well. If you want to drop a super chat, if you're in the YouTube live stream, you can do so, and you can join us every single Wednesday night right after Dynamite when we are live here at youtube.com/postwrestling. Hit subscribe. If you're not, are you out of your mind? That's the only question I have for you. And are you out of your mind if you're not coming to the Post Wrestling 5-year anniversary show on Saturday, November 19th? Because that's the only valid explanation if you have not purchased your ticket yet at postwrestling.com/live, because you would be crazy. You would be lacking pure logic to miss the chance to come see Wai and I do our live Q&A, to participate in one of the world famous Braden and Davey games that they have constructed, where Fire Frank is going to be defending his championship, I understand. I mean, we've got a title defense with way more buildup now than Jon Moxley and Penta tonight. So that is coming your way on November 19th. You're going to see W.H. Park. You're going to see Brandon Thurston. You're going to see our man Neil, who's jumping continents to come over to this show. I understand that one Scarborough dad is going to be leaving Scarborough for this very event. But if there is one guest that I am just at the edge of my seat to have joining us live to meet for the very first time after years, I have never met this individual, but I'm going to see him in living color on Saturday, November the 19th. The man that has made the double underscore in vogue. I'm talking about Andrew Thompson, who will be with us at the Post Wrestling 5-year anniversary show. Andrew, are you like deceptively tall in person? Are we going to find out? Are you like 7 feet tall when we finally meet you in Newark, New Jersey?
I am not on the tall side, but I am a very very friendly individual. So I'm very very much looking forward to seeing everybody. John and Wai, what's going on, my good man? Good to see y'all, man. Long time no visual see, I guess.
Yes, I have got to remark, because you know what? Back when we were just starting doing the video with Andrew, I mean, it did look like you were joining us like it was like a hostage video. You know what I mean? Like, it was grainy. I thought, like, it's we don't negotiate with terrorists, but for Andrew, we might have to. And look at this man's camera now. I mean, that's some 4K. Like, that is crystal clear, Andrew.
I say me and Wai used to joke all the time when on the days when you couldn't make the Post Daily News. We used to joke, and one dude in the chat said I had PS2 graphics. Oh my goodness, man! But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in New Jersey, man. It's gonna be a good time.
How much do you charge for autographs, so that our listeners know when you're there? I mean, will you be available to the people?
I would not be charging a cent for an autograph. I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody. I don't think I'm trying to remember, have I met anyone like from within the Post like network in person before, and I don't think I have. I'm maybe I ran into somebody in Dallas for WrestleMania weekend. I'm not sure like anything with beyond like 4 or 5 days ago seems like it's like lost in my memory, but I'm looking forward to seeing everybody, man. It's gonna be fun.
Who's the most intriguing personality that you're looking forward to meeting, and why is it WH?
WH, you wanna know what? He had messaged me. I guess he found like I guess we all like we gonna be in the same area, so he had messaged me and told me we was gonna be like in that same space, and I'm looking forward to meeting WH. Looking forward to meeting Benno, and everybody that's gonna be there, man. It's gonna be, and most importantly, hold on, I hear that Brandon from New Jersey may be in attendance, because we all gonna be in New Jersey, so I'm definitely looking forward to meeting Brandon too.
Yeah, I have not figured out this weekend, because myself, Andrew, and Neil will all be at this in Newark. I don't know what the site is going to look like that weekend. We're going to have to figure out a plan that weekend.
We will figure something out. We will make it work. If I got to bring my laptop to this place just to make sure that we get some stories up, I promise you, we will figure this thing out. We will have something on the site that day.
Well, tickets are available right now. Postwrestling.com/live. It's the Post Wrestling 5-year anniversary show presented by our friends at Real Digital. And we'll have some information about Real Digital later on in the show. So tickets are available now. You can get the VIP tickets, which come with an exclusive meet and greet. Only a couple of VIP tickets are left. So if you want to get the VIP experience,
and a
you
t-shirt.
should act now. And it also comes with an event t-shirt. And then there are the general admission tickets that include Braden and Davey's live game show and the Q&A, and you get to hang out with everybody as well. So that is Full Gear Weekend, just minutes away from the Prudential Center at QXT's nightclub. Are you excited, Way?
Very. Counting the days, less than a month to go.
Well, there we go. Saturday, November the 19th. We're going to move on to some of the news that is dropping since we've got Andrew here. And I guess the most noteworthy portion of tonight's Dynamite show was a brief video that aired featuring the Elite, or what will be of the Elite. And this seems to be the first kind of signal, Andrew, that it's only a question of when these three will be returning. And this also comes off the heels of kind of the latest coming out of that whole incident at All Out. Nick Hausman at Wrestling Inc. has a report stating that Larry, the CM Punk's dog, was accidentally injured in this whole thing. Ended up several days later when he was at he took Larry to a pre-scheduled veterinary appointment. That Punk was informed that 2 of Larry's teeth had been knocked loose and had to be removed. This in relation to the way that the locker room door was kicked in. There's been kind of varying reports of how exactly the Elite entered the room, but this is just the latest chapter of this whole saga surrounding All Out. But Andrew, I just wanted to do a little bit of a catch up with you of kind of how you see all the pieces landing here on the board with those that were involved at All Out, because it certainly seems like the Elite now it's building for the return. It's not so we're moving to the next phase of this whole story.
Yeah, I think, like, of course, with the Elite, them having that vignette pop up on Dynamite, I think one of the things that probably immediately pop up in people's mind is, well, where does things stand as far as CM Punk goes? Because like they're all like intertwined in this whole situation. Like you said, I do think it's just a matter of like when. Like I am curious as to, and I kind of wondering you guys' thoughts. Like, do you think they'll bring them back before Full Gear so they can be on that show, or do you think it might be best to continue building and maybe do it on the Dynamite after Full Gear?
I would say, like, the fact that the tease has started now, to me, it's like they've made that decision to bring them back. I think you would want to, have this, whether their first appearances back are at Full Gear or like that would seem to be the target where we're a month away, and this is something big that they can build to. If it's a trios match, if it's an appearance, I think that would be something significant for the pay-per-view. So I would be looking at that as sort of your timetable for this, if they're starting to release these videos now and get the buzz generated for that pay-per-view next month.
Yeah.
Are you good? My bad.
I certainly feel like if it's a pay-per-view, they need all the help that they can probably get in terms of star power. So I'm assuming a return is probably will probably be confirmed before the pay-per-view itself.
I'm kind of curious as to like what that first appearance is going to be like. I don't think it's no doubt in my mind that they probably will get like a big reaction, like positive reaction. But I'm wondering like if they'll. I mean, I don't think they'll like ever address it like publicly, well in detail as far as like the near future goes. But I am curious as to like what that first promo segment is going to be like, when I'm assuming they're all going to be in the ring together, and like that the vignettes it's seemingly like indicating like with them vanishing away from certain stuff, like what would AEW be, or would there be an AEW if there wasn't for those three right there that's popped up on the screen right there. So it definitely is an interesting thing, and I'm very curious to see what that first on-screen segment is going to be like, where they're able to speak to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of now shifting from, just all of the fallout of that and what the ramifications were going to be. Now it feels as though, obviously these three are coming back. I don't know if that was ever too much in doubt, but now it's like, exactly, Andrew, how do you handle this? Because it's obviously the giant elephant in the room, but they also may be handcuffed, just in the sense of like, what if there ends up being some kind of buyout with Punk, if there's some kind of language for a non-disparagement, like they can't talk about this incident, they can't work it into certain things, like if there's going to be any of that kind of hang up. Looking at the CM Punk side of things, Andrew, like what are you looking at in terms of his future with this company, with this industry?
Honestly, man, I think if Punk is going to come back to wrestling, I think it's a thing of like maybe it's time to take a look in the mirror, man, and like figure out like exactly what you want, and like we've seen like or heard some of the reports that have came out from reputable sources about like how maybe CM Punk is viewed, and how sort of the locker room is sort of shifted a little bit. Like even you had like talents like Warlow who have said that the guys like Moxley and Jericho and Danielson have stepped up and really gotten the locker room back on track and like gotten things in order and stuff like that. And even coming off of the Andrade or either those Sammy Guevara situation. Like as far as CM Punk goes, I think it's a thing of like Punk is going to have to, if like, because I mean we don't know like all the specifics of it. We just know like the stuff that's coming out. Like maybe there has been some communication there, but I think just going based off what I know, like I think it's going to come to a situation where Punk is going to have to make amends to eventually these people. Because I mean, I think everybody has been in a certain situation, like in any type of workplace. Like you're not gonna get along with everybody you work with, and that's just the fact of what it is. But like when it gets to the extreme of y'all getting physical with one another, and people's dogs getting hurt, and people's wives being being involved in some way somehow, I think it comes to a point where you gotta get everybody to sit down and you gotta really break down like what's the root of this issue. So I think Punk is going to be the one that's probably going to have to step up and make those amends, and for everybody to come back together eventually. But as far as the bow goes, like I saw that too. Like that'll be a very, very interesting thing, because I think a lot of people were sort of talking about the idea of Punk going back to the WWE. I would be extremely surprised if that happens. Like I know we always that you never know in wrestling, but I just can't see, like, especially when you got one executive there in Brian Road Dogg James, who does nothing but talk trash about CM Punk like on a weekly basis on this podcast. It would just be hard to imagine him going back into that environment when you got people literally at the top or near the top who trash him on a weekly basis. It's just hard to fathom that. So I would imagine either Punk is going back to AEW, or he'll take a break for a little bit, maybe like a 1 or 2 year hiatus, and then we might pop up somewhere else. But I think that just remains to be seen.
Just going back to this report from Nick Houseman that just dropped tonight from Wrestling Inc., just a portion of it here. Wrestling Inc. has been told that Punk felt threatened. This is in relation to the All Out backstage fight, and reacted in a legal way under Illinois' Castle Doctrine laws, which allow for the use of force in defense of a person in their dwelling. At this time, there's no litigation against Punk on behalf of anyone involved. It was also relayed to us that Steele's wife, Lucy, was in the room during the incident, but has not been interviewed as part of the internal investigation into the matter. Finally, we were informed that following Hangman Page's comments on a May episode of Dynamite, alluding to backstage concerns about Punk, there was distrust on Punk's end going into the championship match with Page at Double or Nothing, and that Punk was concerned that the predetermined match would break down into a real physical fight. So this is this is going to be like this generation's like Montreal. I feel that way, like where we are going to just get so many versions of this story, and for probably years to come, of people dissecting this one night in AEW's history. Do you, Wai, look at any possibility of a reconciliation with CM Punk and AEW, or is this just a question of, it's very clear the Elite are coming back and Punk, like one side was going to be, you were essentially going to mediate with one side, and it's just not possible to bring these parties all back under the same umbrella again after what has gone down?
Reconciliation, I think, is always going to be on the table if there's money to be made. But in this scenario, I don't see it happening for a long time. Currently, it still seems like there's, obviously, it's obviously in the midst of litigation. Not to mention a locker room that I think, from what, if reports are to be trusted, it's a locker room that is at this point harmonious without CM Punk, and probably prefers to exist without CM Punk, and just you have just so many hurdles to overcome that I don't see it happening anytime soon, at least with what you would deem to be this current generation of AEW. Again, years down the line when talents maybe time heals all wounds, and if CM Punk is still chooses to be active in professional wrestling years from now, then it's very possible, but I don't see it happening, for the next little while.
I actually saw before I jumped on that, PW Insider had reported that the Elite were at the show. They were at Dynamite backstage. So that's I don't know how long. Like maybe that may not be a new thing. Maybe it's like just getting reported that they're back. But like they were, according to that report from PW Insider, they said they were at the show in Norfolk. So that's a interesting little tidbit that they're already back behind the scenes, assumingly, or maybe just there, just checking things out.
So that's kind of the latest that we have in terms of, like, if you watch the show tonight, like obviously like the Elite are, figured into plans, and they're, reintroduced on television, and now it's moving forward to the next chapter. The questions will remain, I guess, about CM Punk and what this ultimately means. I mean, we had the story in the Observer last week about a buyout being discussed, and if that is the end of CM Punk's AEW tenure, it will certainly bring about the speculation of anything to do with WWE, or if this is the last chapter in his professional wrestling career, which would be quite the sour note to end a wrestling career on. But I don't think anything's off the table, Andrew. I think that you could look at this as like, what are the man's options out there in professional wrestling beyond WWE?
Hey, Wayne, John, isn't it crazy like how when you just think back to a year ago, like where we were, like around like last year, September last year, CM Punk was getting ready for his first match in AEW at All Out against Darby Allin. Fast forward a year later, here we are. It's crazy how like drastic things are as far as his return. Because like I remember when he came back, like I've never seen like such an overwhelming response for a talent to come back into the professional wrestling space, and then fast forward a year later, it's like this dude is like just seemingly on the outs. It's crazy, man. Like that, how things have just changed like that.
The industry moves really fast, and I feel like 2022 especially, I feel like it's moved maybe a whole decade, in one. I mean, in both companies, right? So it's going to be a really interesting end of year show, and who knows, maybe next year. Maybe he'll be back. Maybe I don't know. Anything can happen.
Are you? I keep coming up with like questions of all of this. Are you surprised at all? Like this Wrestling Inc. story that comes out. Like it's noted in there that Punk was asked not to talk about this. This is certainly like from Punk's perspective here that he clearly is, whether, this was CM Punk directly addressing this or people very, very close to Punk. This is obviously, Punk's side of this whole thing that we're now seeing. And on top of that, yes, the Elite being backstage at Dynamite tonight, like it does kind of show you like what side is on the ins and what side is on the outs. Like that's kind of how this is playing out, it feels like.
Yeah. Are we surprised that we're hearing like something from Punk's side of things? I mean,
like after all this time, like it's been almost 2 months since this happened, and now he's felt the need to get a certain side out.
Yeah. I don't exactly know maybe how Nick Hausman might have received this information. I mean, we don't know if it was necessarily directly from Punk or maybe some from a party that is just kind of well in the know. But,
no, and I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm just saying, like, this is obviously, this is CM Punk's side. Like, this is,
what was the like specific verbiage CM Punk's camp? Like that was the verbiage that was used in the report, right? It came from CM Punk's camp.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, is the person from the camp acting upon the like their own sort of will to let this information out? I could see like maybe somebody on his side wanting to defend him and bringing up his side of the story, because it's at least public perception to me has been very one-sided in my opinion, and against CM Punk. And there's no clear like who's right, who's wrong. I think in any scenario, like I'm sure it's a mix of the two, and maybe it's kind of about time we've heard a little bit from what Punk's justification might be for his part in it.
So we'll move on to another story that is kind of playing itself out publicly, and that is the ongoing issues between Karl Anderson and New Japan. Which, if you look at it from like the way Karl Anderson is playing it, like it certainly feels as though he is playing along with this story. But this was after New Japan had put out a statement on Tuesday evening, stating that New Japan has, for the past several days, attempted to negotiate with Anderson, but has not been met with a response. Should Anderson decide to renege on his scheduled championship match, he will be required to vacate the Never Openweight Championship and return the title belt to New Japan immediately. You have Hikuleo cutting promos that he doesn't want the title vacated. He wants to beat Karl Anderson. And then Fightful is reporting that there still and always have been active plans for Karl Anderson to compete in New Japan. We have not heard an update on the title itself, but that New Japan does expect Anderson to fulfill additional dates, which WWE was fine with, adding that New Japan was aware, going as far back as August, that Anderson and Gallows were going to WWE, and stating that the situation and things are fine with Anderson, New Japan, and WWE. My overall question is, like, what is in this? Like, first of all, this is very unlike New Japan to be promoting something that they cannot deliver. Number two, it's like, what is the value of pushing this whole thing? Like, no disrespect to Karl Anderson, but it's like, this guy is with WWE. It's like, we're moving on. You know what I mean? And it just feels like we're having this story that, I mean, this match is not going to take place on November 5th. Could it happen at some other card? I guess it's possible. I think New Japan very much believes it's going to happen on another card. I'm sure you will have people speculating about these New York shows this week that New Japan is running about, Karl Anderson maybe showing up and dropping the title. But it just seems to me that it's like New Japan is like, you've got Obari going in Tokyo Sports and talking about this. And it just seems to me like it's just very off brand for New Japan to be putting just so much energy into this story rather than just, okay, we didn't have this guy under contract. Let's just move on and focus on the talent that we do have under deals. Instead of, like, I just think New Japan comes out of this just looking really poorly no matter how this ends.
My feeling is that, they probably booked Karl Anderson in this match, not expecting that WWE would also be booking him on a show on the same day. They probably expected him to be able to make this date, whether or not he was signed to the WWE. And at this point, I sense it's just them trying to kind of save face by ultimately, eventually promote having the match take place kind of within their promotion, rather than just, letting go of the situation and kind of looking bad coming out of it. They seem to be confident that this match is going to happen at some point. And how they get to that story, it seems like they might have to jump through some of their own hoops and contradict some of their own, previous sort of rules in order to get there. But they seem rather confident. I'm in agreement that, like, ultimately we're talking about a Karl Anderson match here for the Never Open Championship. That, like, who cares, right? But I do get the sense it's more about, like, not wanting to look bad at this point.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of a mix of, like, being on different pages. They may have a belief that this match is going to happen. I will, I think for Karl Anderson's sake, he should absolutely do this match and drop this title. But at the same time, if I was WWE, I wouldn't be bending over backwards if I've got this guy under a deal and I don't have to send you to do this match.
Exactly.
It just seems like it's just like the continuing to advertise this match for November 5th when he's being advertised for another show in another part of the world that same day. It's very unlike New Japan. Like, this seems like something that, yeah, here in North America, you would see this kind of thing, but New Japan, it's like they do have a certain credibility in that country when it comes to how they promote things, how they treat talent missing shows and such. And this just seems to be, It just seems to be a mess of a situation that if they believe that it's some grand payoff, if they can pull this off, I think they are sorely mistaken about the juice not being anywhere near worth the squeeze of this this whole title change and getting this match in the ring.
And just piggybacking over that, what you just said, John, like I think that there are maybe some like higher ups in New Japan who may be liking the buzz that they're getting from this and, playing into the whole, or, we tried to contact Karl Anderson and, it's been difficult, getting to reach him and stuff like that. Like when I'm, first of all, like with New Japan, like honestly, like they're way too big of a company to be like letting people hold their championships and be running around without a contract, like something outside of a handshake deal or a verbal agreement. Like this dude is like literally holding one of your championships. You would think you would at least have him under some type of deal. Like, I mean, especially like you say multiple people pointed out that, they've dipped out on New Japan before. And like, you got them working with them again. You came back and working with them again. And they, ultimately ended up signing with WWE. And they've known this since, well, you said the Fight Report know that they've known this since August. I mean, I know the storyline eventually had to play out, with Hikuleo, realigning with Tama Tonga and, the Pardon Bullet Club. But like, I think once they eventually get to this point that, Anderson drops the title, like, I do think that eventually at some point down the line, he'll drop the title. I don't think they're going to vacate it from him. But like, whenever they do this, like, I hope that it is that New Japan thinks whatever the outcome is worth it. Cause I just don't see like anything like beyond like this happening. Like it's like, do they think like a partnership is going to happen or some type of crossover is going to happen? I highly doubt that, or I would be surprised if that happened. But yeah, it's, I mean, like kind of like I always said, it's a Karl Anderson match, man. Like that's okay.
That's what we're building towards. Are we going to get that Karl Anderson Hikuleo showdown that everyone is anticipating? Just a few more things here. Coming out of NXT on Tuesday night, I would say the most interesting aspect of NXT was the official on-screen debut of Simone Johnson, aka Ava Raine, the 21-year-old daughter of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, joining the Schism. With Joe Gacy and company, introducing her as the masked hoodie wearing member of the group, the Disruptor. She cut a very brief promo, and I just was not so much stunned, but it was very interesting, Andrew, to see how much like attention this debut got. Like Sports Illustrated, People, Entertainment Tonight, like everyone, The Rock's daughter debuts on screen. And I'm just watching her on Tuesday. It was like the spotlight that this woman is going to have on her is gigantic. I mean, it reminds me of like David Flair in WCW. It's like she will be, the comparisons are just going to be so unfair. And she's learning just here on national television. So it's she's been in this system for years. It's not as though they just, rushed her to television. Yeah. They have been very, she had an injury in there, but they have, I remember Way being at a WrestleMania when she was sitting in the box with all the NXT people. Like that's going years back. So, it's been a very slow, maturation process, and I mean she's only 21, so it's just a very interesting person to be watching because I think that she's gonna have so much attention on her because of her last name and the fact that they are actively kind of going away from that with a different name, and even the promo kind of distancing herself from the lineage.
Honestly, I think that might be kind of smart to do because like you said, there is going to be like a lot of attention on her. I don't, maybe not so much pressure internally, but pressure from the outside. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you got the Sports Illustrated, you got your New York Post, you got your Fox Sportses, everybody's like all these major outlets are covering this because she is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's daughter. With that comes a lot of attention, and she is, was it the fourth generation wrestler in their family, like in that, in that lineage. So, I mean, I do think it's kind of smart for there to sort of divert her away from that just for now. And like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not going to like sit here and like act like she's not The Rock's daughter. But I think it's more so about sort of let her sort of carve her own path and like find her own way a little bit, like without, completely relying on, or completely relating her to, the fact that her father is like this mega star who
there's a time to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't think this is the worst idea of like a different name. It's like, I know we all looked at like Braun Breaker, like here was a layup, but I just think this is a very different performer. It's something to be the son of Rick Steiner versus the daughter of The Rock. And I think that, she's coming into this to me, it's a very difficult system when you're starting from scratch. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think she's even had a match in front of people.
She hasn't.
She's like, she is complete. She did some promos back in the spring at live events, but I mean, she's been in the Performance Center. Like, that is her experience, and it's going to be on national TV, like talking. Eventually you'll have to do a match with her, but that's a very tough learning process for somebody to be having their first match on national television. Like, it's going to be very similar to like her father.
But see, the thing with Braun Breaker is like when you talk about like those comparisons and like how people was like, well, why don't you just call him Bronson Rick Steiner or Braun Steiner? Like, the thing with people eventually got over it because Braun is a success. Like, in when you're looking at it, just breaking it down, he's a success. He turned out to be a success. So I think for her, it's probably going to be some of similar vein. Like, she'll have to turn out to be a success, and like maybe it might be good for her to be in this group setting because you have people to bounce off of you. Like, it's not just you solely. I think it'll be very different if they were just throwing her out there as Ava Raine with like a bland personality, or like here she is the grand reveal, and then she's on her own. Like, now you got Zach Gibson and James Jericho, Rick Fowler and Jagger Reed along with Joe Gacy, who are good on the microphone, and she can be able to bounce off them, like, some experienced vets. And I think that might be good, just to start off. I think eventually, they're gonna break her away from that, and like maybe she'll have that singles spotlight. But I think just starting out with all that attention that's gonna come on her, it might be good for her to be surrounded by 3 other individuals who are established and have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. For me, it's like, it's certainly a surprise to see her fit in this sort of spooky type of gimmick, but I think it's exactly for that reason that, like, we probably shouldn't be expecting her to just come out to play The Rock, for instance.
Yeah.
She could have been attending Chase U. I mean, she could have been there
Young
with
Rock,
Thea Hale.
I mean, we also don't know what she herself likes. We don't know anything about her own personality. We don't know how much involvement she had in her decision, or in the choice to perhaps be in a stable like this. Maybe this is who she is. Maybe it's closer. Maybe she's more comfortable playing this sort of character than, I don't know, whatever else is expected of her. They're going to dance around the fact that she's The Rock's daughter, but like, I don't even think they have to dance around it so much. She kind of made, clear allusions to it, talking about this being sort of like the family for her, that where she doesn't need to live up to expectations. So I was actually impressed, from what little we got to hear of her. She sounded somewhat comfortable on the microphone, and just remember the incredible amount of pressure that this person is under, knowing how many eyeballs are on her, including her father's, which I'd be most intimidated by it of all. But like, let's just kind of temper our expectations and realize this is somebody relatively, new, in at least on TV in a professional wrestling business, and just let her kind of develop, in a smaller role.
Maybe she should have cut the promo at the end and said, "I'm more of a Marvel fan. I think DC sucks."
Ooh,
there you go.
Can y'all imagine the amount of eyes that are going to be on her when they announce her debut in ring? Can you imagine?
They're probably going to build that up to be like a big episode of NXT. Yeah.
I would too, definitely. If I was like, leading, I would definitely be like building. That's a big deal, man. Like, and especially like we just talked about, like the amount of major outlets that were covering just her popping up on screen when they formally announced that she's going to be wrestling on TV or on one of their specials or premium live events. Like, that's going to be like a major deal for them. And you would think that they'll, I'm just curious as to who they'll pair her with. Cause I mean, relatively, there are a lot of like younger talents in NXT, like lesser experience, I guess. I'm just curious as to like who would be that first person that you would want to throw her out there with on a nationally televised stage, or maybe you take the self route and do like a mixed tag with somebody from the Schism versus another female competitor and another male competitor. Like maybe that would be the easier route to sort of take less pressure off of her, like for her first go around out there on on the big stage, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Some ratings notes. Monday's Raw did 1,641,000 viewers. It was sixth for the night on cable, a 0.45 in the 18 to 49 demo. So they were down 10% in the demo this week. Big third hour drop. They fell 17% in viewership throughout the show. But it was a decrease from the last several weeks. It was a 3-week low for the show going against Monday Night Football. They did a very, very low number in Canada because they were on OLN. But amazingly, 35,000 people in Canada watched Raw from 2 a.m. till 5 a.m. on Sportsnet 360 overnight, which is almost identical to what NXT did last night in Canada as well. So that's the 2 a.m. slot. They've got that on lock here in Canada. And then Ava Raine's debut drew 716,000 viewers for NXT and a 0.15 in 18 to 49. So they were up in viewers, but interestingly enough, like among their younger audience, including 18 to 49, they were down 18% this week from last week's episode that had to go head to head with Dynamite. So I think that's somewhat surprising, the fact that they decreased among their key demo this week without having that Dynamite competition. They were up against the NBA, so that was number 1 and 2 for the night on cable. So that was your ratings breakdown. And the last bit of news is from New Japan. We finished up the first round of the TV title tournament, so as the Never Openweight Championship might be lost in the ether, they have more than enough championships to fulfill that vacancy. But today at Korakuen Hall, they had a cheering show. Fans could make noise as Toru Yano defeated the Great Okan with the assistance of the Great Muta, who showed up, blew mist into the face of the Great Okan, and then announced that he wants to team with Toru Yano and Kazuchika Okada against Great Okan and 2 partners at the historic crossover event on November the 20th, because nothing says New Japan, stardom, interpromotional relationship like the Great Muta, as he will be part of that show. But the big match to go out of your way to see, Ren Narita defeating Tomohiro Ishii in the main event.
I heard about that.
Man, this was it was just under the 15-minute time limit, and the crowd cheering, this was like the best reaction for a New Japan show to me in years. They're all chanting Narita at the beginning of the match. They're all like sensing this could be his big win, and he had just a phenomenal performance with Ishii, winning at the end with the Narita special. Go out of your way to see this match because the pace of the match was incredible. Ishii was just tremendous here, and Narita, just his fire, the sequences that he had with Ishii, it was a tremendous match, and the crowd cheering, like it felt like New Japan in a time warp. Like it felt like 2018 and a hot Korakuen Hall main event. But this was definitely my match of the week so far to see this. So if you haven't checked that one out, it's well worth the watch. So now Ren Narita advances to take on Toru Yano in the second round. I don't know if he will yield the same results as he did with Ishii, but I feel they should go all the way in this tournament with Narita to win the tournament.
I was just about to ask you that. You think they should go out? Yeah, you think they should go out?
I would. I thought he felt like such a big star to this audience. Like this was this breakthrough moment for him tonight. And just looking at the field, Zack Sabre Jr., sure, that's nice. You could put Zack in the finals, but to me, this would be where, Narita's fresh back from this excursion, go all the way. And to me, I like the concept of this TV title. I'm not crazy about the number of titles they have, but this is a welcome concept to me. And Narita could really establish this title as something.
Yeah, I think one of the cooler options that they could have is if they do go all the way with Ren Narita. I think there is a possibility that they maybe run it back with Shibata at Wrestle Kingdom, because I know that happened earlier this year, and then maybe Narita defends it against Shibata, and then he ends up getting the win. Now that he's off of the excursion, I think that could be a cool little full wraparound story that New Japan does if they do go all the way with Narita. And I do gotta go. I want to go check out that match. If it's good as you said it is, I'm definitely looking forward to.
I'm very confident in this one holding up to even the most dissenting opinion. I think you will totally enjoy this match. So there you go. That is the latest news. The second round will be kicking off with Thursday's show, which is also a cheering event at Korakuen Hall, and then the semifinals on November the 5th, unless WWE scoops up anyone and books them on Saudi Arabia that same day. So all of your news can be found at postwrestling.com. You can follow Andrew at AD Thompson _, and you've just dropped an interview with Kylan King. So where can people go check that out?
Yeah, you check it out on my YouTube channel, Andrew Thompson Interviews, and the written version is up on Post Wrestling as well. Very, very much enjoyed that conversation with Kylan, and thanks to everybody who checked it out as well. Big shout out.
And the NWA podcast is this Saturday. You guys are all getting together?
Yeah, myself, Nate, Chris, and we're going to be joined by Rich Fan from PW Torch. Always looking forward to talking with those guys, man. It's going to be a good conversation. And we will be live on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel as well. Hopefully, no technical difficulties like last time.
We'll find out what version of Chris we're going to get on Saturday. Will it be Moderna Chris? Will it be who knows?
Moderna Chris. You got Dr. Chris. You got like 4 different versions of Chris. All versions of Chris are welcome. We always love talking to Chris, man. And I'm excited to talk to Brother Nate and Rich Fan as well. Always good time talking to Rich whenever he come on the show.
Rich Fan might be another name that might be dropping by Newark. So I'm excited to meet all you guys in Newark, including you, Andrew Thompson, of course. So.
And Chris, Dr. Chris is going to be there as well in Newark as well. So what a get together this is going to be. So Saturday, November 19th, Andrew Thompson will be there. Everybody, just watch these tickets. They're just going to be gone.
Posting articles on the site. Doing a live Q&A, man. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a good time. I think I forgot who described it like this. I was just talking to him. They was like called it like a post multiverse or something like that. Like with everybody just within this network, it's gonna be hilarious. And I got a score to settle with Neil because
that's right.
Brother Neil he eliminated me from that Up Next Rumble, so I'm holding on to that, and I'm taking that with me to Newark, New Jersey. So
he's coming all the way. He's coming all the way over here to visit. Andrew, thanks a lot for chatting the news with us. And, of course, you can find all of his work at postwrestling.com and subscribe to Andrew Thompson Interviews. It's a must follow on YouTube, along with Post Wrestling here. So check out the Kylan King interview and all of his back catalog of great chats. So, Andrew, we'll see you in Newark. And thanks for jumping on tonight, man.
Peace, John and Way. Have a good show, man.
Thank you, Andrew. The GOAT, ladies and gentlemen.
Did we dominate too much their way? I feel you were observing.
I'm busy trying to keep up with your conversation with all of these like images and
you were on fire
and shit, dude.
You had that stuff up quick.
It's a lot of work. Nobody sees what I'm doing back here, but I'm I got a million things going on back here, including John.
Yes,
something that we should be talking about, and that is the people responsible for Post Wrestling's 5-year anniversary show. They are Real Digital. For people who don't know who Real Digital is, it's our friend Robert S. Pearson's media company. He has been gracious enough to offer so much of his services to allow us to put the show on. And he's not asking really for anything in return, except for us to mention that he has a Media Monster Mash fundraising event that is taking place this Friday, October the 28th. And it is all being done in support of the Doe Fund. The Doe Fund, their mission is to break the cycles of poverty, homelessness, and recidivism. I should probably know how to read that word a bit better. Through economic opportunity, housing, and comprehensive supportive services, they are looking to raise $20,000, and they can use all the help they can get. So if you choose to read a bit more about the Doe Fund and check out the donation page, you can find it right here on our YouTube channel, and you can also find it in the description of today's show. So again, that is Real Digital and the Doe Fund. They've got their Media Monster Mash fundraising event happening this Friday. So all the best to them in their support, and we want to thank, of course, Robert and Real Digital again for helping us put on this show.
Yes, the team over there is doing a ton of work helping plan out this live show for us. So we have got a lot of cool things planned for our show. So give them some support because they're doing a lot for the post wrestling world during this whole promotion. Tonight we are going to get into Dynamite from Norfolk, Virginia, Nate Milton country at the Chartway Arena. And WrestleTix reporting right around 3,000 tickets out for this show, well down from the last time they were there, which was around 4,900. So like a sizable decrease from the last time they were there. No Hangman Page on this show. There was a brief mention during the Danielson Guevara match that Hangman is at home recuperating and he'll be back as soon as possible. So not much of an update beyond last week's statement, which when it comes to a concussion, like there is not going to be that timetable. Like concussions are going to work on their time.
Yeah. I understand maybe not having that much news to give and maybe not giving it or not spotlighting it as much. But I think just given sort of the concern that so much of the audience had in going off air last week,
Yep.
I think this deserved a bit more than just a brief mention from Excalibur in the midst of a match. I think they should have at least, shown the tweet, that the statement that Hangman Page put out there,
Right.
Letting us know that he's okay. That's as much as I think the audience who might not be online, throughout the entire week. I think that's as much as they want to know. So I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't spotlight the medical update a little bit more.
Yeah, I think like you would, if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed the line from Excalibur when he mentioned it. So we go into the show, and it kicks off with Chris Jericho and Daniel Garcia against Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. And it starts off with Castagnoli and Yuta each landing with elbows. Angelo Parker is getting involved. They fight on the floor, and then Garcia avoids the swing with up kicks to Castagnoli. Hager then gets involved, tripping up Castagnoli, and then we go through the picture-in-picture. Yuta gets the big tag, and Jericho hits him in the throat to stop him. Claudio comes off the middle rope into a code breaker. Yuta's in to make the save, and then Yuta with a dive onto 2.0 on the floor. Jericho gets the bat, but he's stopped with a powerbomb by Castagnoli, and he's looking down at Jericho. The crowd knows what's next, and he lifts up Jericho for the swing, but with an accent in the form of Daniel Garcia on his shoulders. So he delivers the giant swing with Daniel Garcia on his shoulders, and he got more rotations than I would have thought with this thing. Like, he got this around several times, and this crowd went nuts for this variation of the giant swing. Boots Hager off the apron, and then does his like power-up spot that was a very famous sequence on Raw many years ago, where he just takes out everyone, like right out of a video game, laying out Garcia, Menard, and Parker back into the ring. Neutralizer, pins Chris Jericho in 11 minutes and 42 seconds, and I thought they did a hell of a job of setting up Castagnoli for the next, well, not the next ROH title shot, but a future ROH title shot.
Agreed. Yeah. I think this proves to me again that any combination of these Blackpool Combat Club guys together in some form of a multi-man match almost always guarantees a great match. I thought you had some really great showcase runs for Claudio and Yuta here. To me, it was Yuta that definitely like stole more of my attention than even Claudio here. He, to me, has been somebody who's been really leveling up lately. His intensity has always been strong, but now it feels like his confidence and comfort also feel very good now. And again, we all, I think a real turning point, at least for me on screen watching him, was that MJF feud. Again, it's very easy to see who might have won it, at least on the microphone, if you're judging by that. But I think the confidence that he showed in even going up against MJF and being as vocal and as being as being able to survive that as well as he did showed me that he had a lot within him. And once you've gone up against the best, everybody else is sort of easy in comparison. So, or at least not as big of a challenge. The crowd at this point, I think, has really taken to him too. He, to me, got a bigger reaction than even Claudio here. So I think they're doing a great job with Yuta right now, as we'll go on to talk about in the next segment. And then also Claudio versus Jericho, setting up that rematch too.
In terms of Claudio going for the title, so Final Battle tickets go on sale a week Friday. So I'm very interested to see if they want to announce that main event next week, which, you know, it's kind of difficult when you're building to Full Gear, but you probably, for an ROH show, I would think when tickets go on sale, you at least want to have the main event. Is Jericho Claudio, is that like a sizable main event for Final Battle instead of Full Gear?
Yeah, I only hesitate, John, because we saw it, you know, and at this point, if you're trying to charge somebody for a pay-per-view, I would honestly have to, you know, argue that you should be putting your best foot forward, and I don't know if like a rematch is the best foot forward. When you have, I think, you know, at least our expectation is a Samoa Joe match at the end of this, you know, in Jericho's run to conquer all the former ROH champions. They seem to have altered that storyline a little bit today. And I mean, from this, I don't see any sort of interaction with Samoa Joe happening anytime soon, especially while Joe still carries that championship and he's in the midst of, you know, the War Joe sort of campaign. So, it looks to be that direction, John. You know, Jericho versus Castagnoli. I know the match will be great, but is it as like fresh of a matchup, or is it as like, you know, clamored for of a matchup as it would have been without that first match? Not as much to me, but you know, they had that's where the build comes in, right? That's where the TV time comes in. That's where Chris Jericho cutting a big promo and building a storyline comes in. So I hope they manage to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be looking at Full Gear or Final Battle as the spot for that match. So Renee interviews Renee, by the way, you know, they joke that Tony Schiavone's been fired since they've got Renee now, who did about a dozen interviews on this show. So Tony Schiavone gets to sit now during Dynamite. She's with Bryan Danielson, and he said how he's frustrating after losing to Jericho several weeks ago, frustrated that Daniel Garcia chose the Jericho Appreciation Society, and frustrated that Yuta talked back to me last week. A lot of people have issues with Sammy Guevara. I'm going to take all my frustration out on him. And Yuta walks in stating, we just beat Jericho and Garcia. I'm a grown man. And then Danielson cuts him off and slaps him. And Claudio's got to get in between them. Says, it's a great day, and it's Wheeler Yuta's birthday, and we're going to discuss this like adults later, which was a line that would actually pay itself off later when the Blackpool Combat Club were all in a room together and would be locked inside of a room together. But yes, it was Wheeler Yuta's birthday, and he got slapped by Bryan Danielson on this great day, according to Claudio.
Can't think of a better birthday gift. Are you kidding me?
Also,
it's
CM Punk's birthday.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, happy birthday to him too. You know, it's good to see a more fired up Bryan Danielson here. You know, I feel like ever since he's, you know, over the past year returned to AEW, he's promised us a more angry, violent version of himself. And I certainly feel like he's achieved that in ring. I can't necessarily say he's done the same as a personality in these, you know, as sort of like a character. I've never over the past year gotten as full of a sense of who he is as I did back when he was in the WWE. And maybe that calls to attention the style of programming, you know, that one company favors over the other. And the lack of promo time, I would say overall, that I feel like we've had with Bryan, at least compared to people I would consider to be on his level, like a Jon Moxley or a Chris Jericho. And I hope this is maybe a signal that, you know, some that is starting to go into change. There's like a popular Reddit thread I saw this week about people asking why Danielson was not necessarily being promoted as much as, you know, a Chris Jericho or a Jon Moxley as one of like the faces of the company. And for me, besides the booking and him not necessarily winning a whole lot of matches, I certainly feel that lack in his promo time, in his character development time. So we got to see a bit of it here, you know, him being really fired up, getting pissed off. So I hope to see a bit more is all I'm saying.
Then we had the video of the Elite. So it was just various images going right back to the announcement video on the eve or New Year's Eve of 2018 going into 2019, where they had the phones, and you just have the cutouts of the Young Bucks and Omega disappearing. And then at the end, a logo of AEW with the E in the middle disappearing as well. So yeah, this had a very much Back to the Future vibe with the photograph.
Yeah, I've seen Endgame referenced, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to see AEW play with some like video teasers,
Was All Out the snap?
I think in some ways, it was the fault. The press conference really was the snap. It was the press conference. Well, maybe
instead of the Infinity Gauntlet, it was the Infinity Cupcakes.
Wow. Okay. Perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to see AEW play with some video teasers to build anticipation without having somebody explicitly talk or cut a promo. Anytime I watch something like this, I always try to study maybe like some of the techniques and just thinking how they were able to like make up the rest of the background of that image. Anyway, just really nerdy like Photoshop stuff.
This is what I want from you.
Watch. Yeah, how did they I mean, I know how you do it. Like, I suppose you you take a clean image and then you just kind of like pay, but like it's much harder to do with video, like moving pictures. So I'm very curious to know like how they managed to do this for so many. And they did a relatively decent job, I felt.
What did you think? Would you need the content aware filter? Would that come into play at all here?
I would assume maybe a lot of content aware fill might have been used. Yeah.
Do you look at this as any kind of like when they come back of sort of rebranding them, or just some change to their characters, like almost getting away from the Elite, the way this video was set up? Like it's like a different presentation of them than we're expecting.
So this will be really interesting, is to see like what the reception to them will be, whether they'll be treated as baby faces or heels.
They'll get a monstrous pop when they come back. That first time.
Yeah, a video like this, talking about them like wanting to change like reminding us of all the warm fuzzy feelings we had of the Elite as sort of like the fathers of this entire company, seems to me like they're being promoted for a big babyface return. And does it change them? I don't necessarily think so. They were baby faces when the company started. So if anything,
I'm not even saying baby faces or heels, but more so like getting away from like the Elite, coming up with some like different idea of just how they're like this video. It was like about and I understand you're playing into like, will they ever come back? But as well, like the idea that the Elite is dead and now there's something in their their kind of reinvention of the Elite.
Like a change of name for the group. They are going to be together, and if they're going to be together, I'm going to assume they're going to just keep that branding as the Elite, because it's a malleable name. They can change up their characters but still be called the Elite. For me,
if their first appearance is at the pay-per-view, is that a satisfying hook for the pay-per-view? Just the three of them showing up, not wrestling? Or do you think that their first appearance is television?
I think they need to be advertised for a match. And, obviously they have unfinished business with the trios tag team championships. And I think that would be a perfectly fine match to promote. Death Triangle versus the Elite, just as a rematch. If the Death Triangle are still champions by that point.
There's a history between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks, Omega and Pac. They have had their matches in AEW. Like there's a lot of connective tissue there, and just them coming back. As we mentioned with Andrew, PW Insider reported they were backstage on Wednesday night. So that's another dynamic as well, like coming back as EVPs as well, like that whole dynamic to things as well. So this was the most notable thing, I think, on the show, obviously, because it's kind of been this lingering issue, and now the question will be, will Tony Khan speak about any of this? No, I'm not going to comment.
No comment.
I don't know how that video got on Dynamite.
At this point, I don't even know if he needs to. I don't even know. I don't know if I want to hear the Elite speak that much. I think they've somehow kind of landed into a scenario where there's a bit of mystique that's attached to this group that wasn't there before. We haven't heard anything from them from their side. And I almost feel like you should run with that all the way up until the pay-per-view. Simply have the match made. Simply have maybe the Death Triangle call them out. And then have them appear without having said any words, until the match and until the week after even. Run with this, mystery a bit.
Okay, here's my other hypothetical question. They're on Full Gear. Do you put them in front of the media after for the press conference? I'm serious. They are the most newsworthy 3 individuals on that entire show. Do you put them in front of the media for 20 minutes after the show?
Feeling, John, is what is there to gain from these press conferences if you're Tony Khan and All Elite Wrestling? What are you looking for these? If there's any semblance of any sort of legal issue involving this group, I don't think you have them appear, because you're only going to frustrate the media, who's going to want to ask these questions, and they'll inevitably just have to deflect everything. If they're not going to answer, I would suggest that they don't appear.
Yeah. Well, we will find out. I'm sure all of this is going to unfold in the coming weeks. Shivani is with the Jericho Appreciation Society. I was able to see everyone in this segment. I could barely hear anyone in this segment because the audio was a mess. There was everyone was focused on the audio. I was just baffled that this production guy, his head is popping up at the bottom of the screen. I mean, this was some really poor production.
Yeah, somewhat unfortunate. It's live TV. Like, this stuff happens. And if anything, I would say they've had a pretty decent track record over the 3 years of this not happening more. But hey, man, something must have got miscommunicated here. Something went wrong. Maybe he was trying to fix all the audio. Maybe something.
I mean, maybe that was it. Just was. It was enough that you could hear Jericho. He's issuing a challenge next week to a former ROH champion, and they're in Baltimore. That was Sinclair's home market. And Sammy Guevara.
So was this a tribute to ROH? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it was white balanced, so I mean, it was not quite. Maybe that'll be next week. Baltimore. Yes. Okay, so Sammy Guevara.
Which was today's John Pollock impression in the top 31. Shout out at Archive Away.
Yes, and then Sammy Guevara ended it with a promo. FTR against Swerve in Our Glory. The Acclaimed came out to watch the match, and we have the Gun Club dressed up as FTR in the front row. The FTR tried early on to hit the big rig onto Keith Lee. They really should have tried it on Swerve, but they were adamant about doing it to Keith Lee, and it took multiple tries. Then Keith Lee, after avoiding this big rig, does a leapfrog. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, Keith Lee's a big guy doing a leapfrog. It's impressive for a guy that size. Dude, he leapfrogged over both of them.
Yeah.
And then took them out. This was incredible. Yeah. He did a vertical, put his legs out, and both guys ran under him. I just could not believe this.
Yeah, it really was amazing, and probably somewhat overlooked of a feat by the end of this match, because but in the end it was
not for me. This is what I took out of this week. This Ren Narita and that Elias Chad Gable moonsault knee spot.
God, yeah, absolutely. It's incredible, the vertical leap that a man this size has, and his incredible flexibility in his hips.
Man,
wow,
it was just beautiful. Cash then gets sent off the shoulders of Lee into a sit-out powerbomb by Swerve. Cash is fighting them 1-on-2. Dax then runs in, catches Swerve coming off the turnbuckle, and eventually hits a slingshot powerbomb onto Swerve. Lee is in with a pounce. Then FTR goes for the powerplex, and Cash doesn't fully land the splash, but kind of lands on his back. And they went to show the replay, but they would not show the splash, which, I mean, it was fine. Then another.
I thought it kind of.
The crowd popped for it regardless, and the announcers were like, "Yeah, he still landed on his back." It was fine. He was trying to get out of the way.
But whether or not intentional, I mean, the announcers rightfully said this was the reason why he kicked out. He didn't fully land it.
Yeah.
It worked out in the end.
So second big rig, it cannot be hit to Lee. And then finally they manage their third attempt, but Swerve pulls Dax out to the floor, which doesn't cause a DQ, which is kind of annoying. But this spot seems to be back in vogue in professional wrestling. The just yank the guy out right in front of the referee.
Should
spot.
it cause a DQ?
I mean,
I don't think it's ever. Has it ever been a DQ? People have pulled the refs out even, and that's.
Well, the pulling the ref spot is a bit more egregious, but nonetheless,
knock the ref out, I suppose, by doing that. But.
It's just doing it right in front of the ref that just kind of. I just feel like it's.
Why can't you do it though? Because you can kick, the legal man to save a pinfall. So why can't you pull them out of the ring?
I mean, you're interfering when you're not the legal man. Like how's
that different from running in to break up a pinfall?
Well, we don't know what the AEW rules are of like you get one free save. They had done their one free save in this, but they've like in WWE that's like the unspoken rule. You get one save, and then after that it's a DQ.
Man, I know I've heard that. I've not seen it like implemented. Referees
they have done it on occasion on Raw. It was like years ago, but they did it once and explained the rule. But then there's a roll up by Dax for a 2 count, low blow by Swerve that the referee does not see, nor does Keith Lee. So he capitalizes with the Big Bang Catastrophe, pinning Dax in 15:06. So we'll get a third match with Swerve in Our Glory and the Acclaimed. But like the finish here was the idea that Swerve once again cheated, but Keith Lee did not see the low blow. So he won, and we'll find out if he watches Dynamite or not, or if he's just going to be oblivious to this going into Full Gear.
Yeah. Well, he was in the match. I don't know if he'd want to rewatch it again, but they kind of have the same thing going on with a Death Triangle and Pac. And I mean, you kind of have to do some of these things sometimes, like when you're trying to tell stories where one person on the team is a heel, the other is a baby face. I'm not too bent out of shape about it, especially when a match like this happened. It was a hell of a match, sort of your like PWG style of match when you're left with like no break in action to breathe. And I thought it was great. Swerve to me especially was my personal favorite to watch in this match. He seems to be somebody who's really found his swagger as of the Acclaimed feud. He's to me operating at a level that is beyond what we saw of him in NXT, and certainly what we saw of him in the WWE main roster, which wasn't really anything. To me, it feels like he's like performing as his best self, and it's really exciting to see because this is a Swerve that I can certainly see as a world championship level contender. He was just so much fun to watch, his cockiness throughout the entire match, and it wasn't just the wrestling moves, but it was like him laughing after pulling Dax or Cash out. Just the cockiness was just great. So seems like they're building to FTR versus Guns, and I saw a lot of people like online were disappointed that FTR weren't the ones getting the championship match here. There's still time, before they. That's a really hard
it's a really hard match to book. Like I wouldn't be taking the titles off the Acclaimed, and I don't think FTR should be going for these titles unless they're winning them when you've got the other three. I'm not crazy about FTR and the Gun Club. I mean, it's certainly, it's a fine match, but that to me is a final battle match and less of a Full Gear match to me.
Perfectly fine. Like final battle match. Fine, I suppose. Like, yeah, I don't think it's good enough for a final battle. I think
you know what? You're right, because you're following those ROH pay-per-views with the Briscoes and FTR all year. Like that's, and the Guns can have a perfectly serviceable match, but I don't know if people are buying that pay-per-view for perfectly serviceable match.
It's a Dynamite match. It might even be a Rampage match if I have to be honest. Perfectly fine, I think, for a character. The Guns are very entertaining as personalities, but I mean, for a pay-per-view, I think you want something a bit juicier. There's still time for FTR to challenge for the AEW championships, before they drop the others. But for now, you got to focus on completing this trilogy because there's money to be made in the rubber match between the three. Who do you think wins? Do you think Swerve in Our Glory wins the belts back, or do you think the Acclaim keeps it?
I mean, your natural inclination was that the Acclaim should retain the titles. I will not be disappointed at all if Lee and Swerve win these belts back. I love this team. I think they're great together. I don't want them to split. I really don't mind. Like, I'm not a fan of the partners that can't get along, but this is such a fresh take on it that it's it just works with these two. And I really enjoy these two as a team together. I think they're much, down the road, you can do something with Swerve, but just given how packed everything is on this roster, I think these two would risk getting kind of lost without each other. And I think being a team has certainly helped both of their causes in AEW. So I would expect the Acclaim to retain, but certainly would not be disappointed if it ended back on Lee and Swerve. But yeah, I think they want to probably approach that first match and certainly outdo the second match that was the big pop at the end for the title change, but not as memorable as the first.
I'm more partial to having Swerve and Our Glory win the belts back. And for me, the reason is because I think they're stronger in-ring competitors and therefore stronger people that you can promote big matches for, whether it be on a pay-per-view or like, I don't know, even a Battle of the Belts. I think the Acclaimed are great, but to me, they're more personality-based characters. And it's certainly over as hell, but the most over of any team right now in the tag division. But I don't
long term, they don't need the belts either. Like they are in their own category. But they do have something too. I wouldn't want to just extinguish that. It's a very interesting match to put together.
Yeah.
So Renee had her next interview with Saraya. Britt Baker interferes in and just gets called a bitch. So it looks like they are going to Saraya and Britt Baker and setting this up. That seems to be the full gear match.
Yeah. This was a segment to set up a talking segment next week.
They're going to sit down though. They were standing up this week. They're going to get chairs next week.
Listen, I think I feel like we need more substance from Saraya by this point. And I'm assuming
this is my favorite game of like what someone flew to a whole different state for. Like Saraya came all the way to this show for 30 seconds of this to pretty much say, let's talk next week.
We need, like, I'm assuming we're going to get it next week because I guess when you're sitting down, that's the time to deliver some bigger news, right? Okay, fine. But it overall has just taken us way too long to finally hear explicitly that Saraya is back as an in-ring competitor. They made us wait too long for it. And
they already dropped it though. Remember, like they mentioned it a few weeks ago that she's cleared.
So they explicitly said it because I forget. I know that they were teasing it when she was getting physically involved with Britt Baker, but did they actually say on commentary that she's been cleared?
I'm trying to remember the segment. Like she got physically like involved that week.
There was an insinuation from Excalibur that, oh, maybe Britt Baker's sources are wrong, and that she's not actually. But like to me, like the big announcement and the announcement I'm assuming we're going to get next week is that I'm medically cleared. I'm back I'm able to get back into the ring. I feel like they've dangled it too long, and then like they've had Saraya not appear for certain weeks, so that by the time it actually
there was 1 week she had to go back to England, so they were kind of without her for 1 week.
You telling me they couldn't have shots anyway. The momentum for me has completely deteriorated for the Saraya thing. They can win me back, of course, with a great segment next week. I'm waiting for that great segment. And I certainly
let them sit and explain to you why.
Well, even beyond that, I did not like the segment because beyond it being a segment that told you nothing, beyond Saraya and Renee being so happy that they're back in AEW,
don't even start with me, bitch.
They had these two just like argue like little like school children,
and then they got scolded by Renee.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't think it was great, but listen, like there's still plenty of time to tell the story. They can certainly win me back next week.
We go to break. We come back. Dude, Renee's in the arena now. Like she was all over this show.
They're getting their money's worth with Renee,
oh my God. She was just all over. So she brings out MJF, and MJF proceeds to do a mock Jon Moxley. He does a mock walk of Jon Moxley.
Moxley.
Yes, Jon Moxley. Very good. I was close on that one.
Sorry.
And then did a Jon Moxley promo before calling him mid, and said, and he prefaced all this with all due respect. And Renee said, you can't just say with all due respect and then say something disrespectful. And MJF just boom, with all due respect, shut your mouth, Renee. And this crowd they love him. They go nuts for this. He brings up Regal and insinuating that he can't beat Jon Moxley without using his Dynamite diamond ring. So he promises he will not use this ring at Full Gear, which means maybe he has like a new weapon that he's going to introduce at Full Gear. And he doesn't need the ring. He calls Newark his backyard, and at Full Gear, he is fighting every scumbag that told him he isn't good enough, and he will take the chip off his shoulder and shove it down all of their throats. Stokely Hathaway walks out, which I could have sworn this was strike 3. Didn't he warn him, like, you interrupt me one more time? So he came out to interrupt him, and MJF tells Hathaway he wants Jon Moxley at 100%, and the firm is not to attack Moxley after the match with Penta tonight. And if he does, he'll be fired, and then ends the segment with his catchphrase. He played total babyface here, and I think we're starting to see the picture is that here is the devil that is just taking all of these fans and just making them so gullible to love him, and he's going to fuck them when it's right. And I think that's where this is all going, and it's going to be the audience that feels totally deceived by this guy at the end.
Right. Because it's MJF, I think that's for a lot of people, for most people, I should say, maybe the first inclination is that this is all being set up for a big swerve later on. But are we discounting the idea that they simply want to get ahead of themselves, knowing MJF will be in Newark, in the New York, New Jersey area, and will very likely be cheered as a major babyface for that particular match? So
I seem to recall the last time, or one of the times they were in New Jersey. Like, didn't he just totally shit on New Jersey, being from Long Island? And now they're trying to make like Newark like his it's my backyard.
He tried to babyface himself in Virginia today, and they were loving him. So I don't doubt Newark would cheer him very. I mean, because there's going to be a lot of New York, New Jersey people in attendance, of course. So it's intriguing either way. They're not telling us a straightforward story that we would have expected with a MJF versus Jon Moxley match. They're definitely setting something different up with MJF. We don't necessarily know whether to cheer or boo him, but it is compelling either way. And it was really interesting to see, this was like a real glimpse of like what a full-on MJF babyface promo might be like. It was also really interesting for me to see like the use of Renee in the segment. It's the first time to my recollection, we've seen her sort of in a position of interviewing one of her husband's immediate rivals.
And just referred to Jon Moxley. There was no reference of like my husband or MJF calling it out.
Well, she did say John. She said John.
That's his name. Okay?
Yeah, but you're not on a first name basis with somebody in this sort of setting unless you were close to him, right?
Well, I thought it was notable that they didn't have MJF go that direction, because that seemed to just be like, it was almost like you could have used Shivani for this segment for that very reason. Mm-hmm. If they wanted Renee to be here, but they didn't go that direction.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm perfectly fine. Like, I don't discount the fact that maybe in the future they might, but I thought they were going to, in fact, for this one, and somehow like anger Mox so much that Mox will come out to want to get revenge. But I'm kind of glad they didn't go there. Personally, I think there's a real conflict of interest, in the kayfabe world of AEW. Come on, you can't have a person's wife interview their opponent. That's good. There's no impartiality.
What if she called him Mox, not Moxley, Mox?
Well, that's a bit better still. So some of the line of questioning here, I have to. This is one where I feel like Tony should have gotten the job.
The Kingdom did a promo addressing Warjo, and they call that a terrible tag team name. And Taven wants the TNT title, so that's going to happen on Rampage. Wardlow versus Matt Taven.
Somebody must
clear out really your schedule way for Friday night.
Oh man, I feel kind of bad for Matt Taven, honestly. Like, he just seems to be like the butt end of so many people's jokes. But hey, man, like this is a new opportunity for the guy. It could light a fire under his ass, and he could deliver a hell of a performance. But it's Rampage. What do you want me to say, John? Like, it's on par with the Rampage match. Here's a guy that some people might have heard of. You might not be that excited for this match, but it's going to be for a championship that likely won't change hands.
And this is a standalone Rampage.
As they've been, and they have not been impressive at all. So I don't know. This just seems to be on par.
Sammy Guevara versus Bryan Danielson. I thought this match was excellent. Sammy Guevara lands this flying knee immediately and then a springboard cutter. Danielson comes back, Rita Romero special that they explain he learned through it being applied to him by Jushin Liger, and then Regal stating that Johnny Saint taught him the finer points of it as well when he was over there. And at one point, Regal is asked how close he is with Bryan Danielson, and Regal just says, he's like a fourth son, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Very
fourth son. Yeah.
Fourth son, yes. So Sammy Guevara is getting lit up with kicks here, and then lands a knee off the apron and hits a top rope Asai moonsault to the floor. He nearly hit the ceiling, and they go to picture-in-picture. Danielson is just destroying him, runs into a Spanish fly by Guevara, and then a backdrop off the top. Guevara lands on his feet, and then Guevara goes to the top, and he goes for a moonsault, landing on his feet, does the double moonsault a la Andrade, and does not hit it. He did the Andrade double moonsault, and I don't think that was by mistake. And gets caught in the label lock and then reaches the rope. Danielson gets caught with a one-man Spanish fly off the top. Guevara's biting Danielson. GTH gets countered with Bryan Danielson hitting a Poison Rana, Busaiku knee, and then applies the triangle while administering elbows for the stoppage at 15 minutes. I thought these two were terrific. I thought Guevara was just at his best in this match. Danielson was tremendous. They brought it up like styles make fights. These two styles, I knew they would mesh well, and they did. I really enjoyed this a lot.
I did too. It was a very good match, one in which Bryan, I thought, as a character, successfully showcased an even higher level of intensity than usual. And I did not even notice that little subliminal. It's so funny. It's like, yeah, like in rap beefs, sometimes like guys will just like throw in little references, and I suppose you can have that in pro wrestling as well, where guys can just throw a little move in there as a shot. Or maybe they've kind of put the past behind them, and maybe this is all.
When's Andrade's video going to start airing?
His video, his vlog, you mean? He starts a vlog.
No, like where he's posing and he's disappearing in the photo.
Oh, I don't know. Well, maybe they'll come back and deliver. I don't know, GTH or something like that. Sammy is almost like flawless as a high flyer, so he's very dependable in these types of matches. And yeah, it was good. Nothing bad to say about this.
Renee interviews Rey Fenix and Alex Abrahantes. They're asked about Penta becoming a double champion. Phoenix wants to become a double champion too, and Abrahantes says you should become All-Atlantic champion. So then Christian Cage and Luchasaurus walk in, and they state that, or Cage says that they're going for the title, and Luchasaurus beat Jungle Boy, who beat Rey Fenix. So they deserve the shot. Cassidy walks in and says, "Are you all talking about me? And next week, let's do this." So they all get title shots. So there you have it. It's not as tough to get a title shot as you make it out to be.
Well, again, the ranking system is no more. Like, they haven't updated it since August. And I'm fine with it. People were complaining today about how there was no real direction for Penta. I agree that like
they tried to explain he beat Villano 4. So had Villano 4 won that tournament, we would have got Jon Moxley and Villano 4, which I would have been down for the year that guy's had. That should have been the match.
Well, whatever you need to justify it, I suppose. I think the problem is not the fact that we're getting championship matches out of nowhere. It's the fact that for Penta, where do you go from here as a single star? Title challenges, world title challenges are the culmination of stories. They should be the culmination of chases, long chases, and you're essentially kind of giving something away for Penta that at least should have had a bit more importance and a bit more weight put on it than just a 1 week challenge. Not to mention the fact that it's incredibly hard to buy that somebody can beat somebody based off of a non-build without the story, right? I don't care about that as much for the All Atlantic Championship. It's a mid C level title that I think should be.
Was that a play on words? A SEA level title?
It is now, yes. But it should be like the type of open challenge title that I think the TNT title at one point is. I'm not as precious about who gets those shots.
Jamie Hayter against Riho. They had a singles match last December. Riho won that match, so this is the rematch. And Baker is getting involved constantly in this match. It was quite prevalent on the show. Riho hit that crazy looking high cross to Jamie Hayter on the floor where she looks like she's coming down at like 90 miles an hour and then gets rammed into the apron. Hayter blocks a Tiger feint kick, and then there's a Northern Lights by Riho. Baker continues to get involved. Riho hits the code red for a near fall, misses the foot stomp, and then takes a backbreaker from Jamie Hayter. Hayter lands a boot and a ripcord lariat, which they really put over as a devastating finisher, and pins Riho in 10 minutes and 52 seconds. So they are even in their series way, and Toni Storm comes out to hold up the championship. So it looks like Jamie Hayter will be the next challenger for the title.
It's the Rainmaker,
Yeah. So she just needs a name for it. The
Rain Hayter. No, not that good. They'll come out with something, I hope. Yeah.
We'll work on it.
She's got a great looking lariat, so to use that sort of move as a finisher, I totally buy it. Really, like almost every move that Jamie Hayter does looks really devastating. She plays just an incredible powerhouse,
and Rio's just the best baby face because everything looks like it kills her.
Yeah, like the size differential was definitely used to their advantage. Like Riho makes, maybe that's part of the reason why everything looks so devastating, because it was on Riho. Really great chemistry between these two for that reason. Riho has like really exciting high paced offense that really feels relentless and is able to get the crowd on her side despite, I think, relatively long hiatus from the spotlight. I thought they would be actually building to her for an actual title challenge, but that's okay. Like, Jamie Hayter makes more sense as a heel, and it was a very exciting match. Hayter versus Storm. Who do you think the crowd will be cheering for, and what do you think?
I think they're hoping it's going to be like a big support for Jamie Hayter. Like it seems
against
like
Toni Storm, really? You think so?
I think that they feel like there's all this momentum behind Jamie Hayter. I think that's the reason she's getting the match.
Okay. And do you think Storm loses?
It's possible. Like, it's an interesting story of Jamie Hayter having the title and Britt Baker wanting the title. That gets you there to your long-awaited feud way.
I just don't see it yet because, like, we've heard so little of Jamie Hayter on the microphone, and to me, like, at least at this point in AEW, if you're going to hold that championship, it feels like you need more of a presence on the microphone. So all I'm saying is I don't necessarily see this being any more than another sort of notch on Toni Storm's win record. And is that going to be disappointing? If you're doing this, of course they can always springboard a loss to Storm from against Toni Storm as a way to, again, try to break her off of Britt Baker again. But I guess I wasn't necessarily expecting this sort of a title challenge to come so quickly.
Renee is with Eddie Kingston, and they referenced the segment last week with Penta and Phoenix and Eddie Kingston's recent behavior. And he just grits his teeth and says everything's fine and tells everyone to stop worrying about him. And he would rather talk about the match between Moxley and Penta tonight, which he picks Moxley to win, which may be something that plays into maybe as you're talking about what's next for Penta, one of his good friends picking against him here, as he had two friends here having a match, and then tells everyone to leave him alone.
Interesting. So this is coming off of the intervention that took place last week. Like this sort of anger management intervention.
I don't think they got through to him. I don't think this intervention worked.
Now, was that supposed to lead to like is this a bigger storyline of like Eddie Kingston somehow, I don't know, working through his anger issues?
Yes.
Or is that done?
Yes, this is a question that would have prompted him to fly off the handle, but instead he remained composed here with Renee.
A question about who's going to win?
And he changed the subject to something more calming, such as two best friends having a war tonight.
Okay, interesting. I mean, if they're kind of doing like an Eddie Kingston holding back his aggression, I'm assuming it's all just trying to build him up for a big release somewhere down the line. So who gets that?
You know what was interesting is that so many, like a lot of the New Japan guys are over for these next 2 nights of New York shows. I was kind of curious if we'd get any cameos on the show. You have like Okada's over here, Shingo's here, like a ton are on the Friday night card, and then Thursday's the mystery show. So anyway, those are happening.
Or vice versa
in New York. Yeah, you like Eddie Kingston's headlining the show on Friday. So
maybe Carl Anderson will show up. Dynamite.
I mean, I don't know about that. It's very interesting, all the machinations. So our lineup for Rampage on Friday night in Uncasville, Connecticut. You are getting Wardlow against Matt Taven for the TNT title, Madison Rayne against Ty Mello, and Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta against Matt Menard and Angelo Parker.
Yeah.
Dynamite next Wednesday in Baltimore, the home of Sinclair Broadcasting. Jay Lethal against Darby Allin, the daddy-ass birthday bash, Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, and Rey Fenix for the All-Atlantic title, Renee's sit-down with Saraya and Britt Baker, that will be the main event, and then Chris Jericho against a former ROH champion.
Yeah, so they said that now it doesn't have to be a world champion. Jericho has said that he's going to hunt any former ROH champion down. So they've relaxed the qualifications a little bit.
That's a sizable relaxation. It's like they run the gamut on available, like Loki can't show up.
I feel like this kind of rules out Loki.
Eddie Edwards is not around.
Yeah. It could be anybody, John. Who's held any belt there. Like,
okay, let's look at the TV championship lineage. Okay, it's a lot of the same names that have held that held the world title. I'm trying to. Tomohiro Ishii is a ROH TV champion. Bobby Fish, he's around.
Probably not him, I would assume.
It's not going to be. What about Tony Deppen? Rhett Titus.
Yeah, I mean, Rhett Titus has worked for ROH, but is that appealing? I mean, I don't know.
Okay, let's
could be Matt Taven.
Let's look at the pure championship. Okay, let's see. It's not going to be AJ Styles. Doug Williams. Would you want to see Doug Williams?
I would love to see Doug Williams.
John Walters. John Walters.
Yeah, he's done like judging for the Pure Rules matches.
That's right.
Come on, you gotta be more obscure than this. Like really out of nowhere. Come on.
Josh Woods. It's gonna be Josh Woods.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Could. Yeah, sure. He's there.
Okay. So these are some of the options that they have. I don't know why they've expanded it so much. I don't know who could necessarily come out of this.
Clearly they have an idea for a match next week, and that person doesn't happen to be a former Ring of Honor world champion. So it's got to be interesting enough to like warrant, this sort of match, but that person isn't a world champion, so I wonder who it is.
So you don't have a prediction. You're not going to throw anyone out there.
My knowledge or memory of like former Ring of Honor TV or 6-man world champions is not. Maybe it's one of the boys, John.
It could be. That's always possible.
Vincent. Maybe it's Vincent.
I'm going to go with Naruki Doi when he held the tag titles with Shingo in March of 2007 for 4 weeks before losing them back to the Briscoes.
All right.
Okay.
Well, take your bets now, everybody. Drop your pick.
And we had a promo from Darby Allin, and he explained why Sting has not been around recently. He told Sting he's not happy about where he's going. He said, I listened to Ask Away, and they did not rank me at the top of the 4 pillars. In fact, John even said I might be in 3rd. And he wants to crawl into a hole and disappear. And Sting said, you can't do that. And Darby said, well, I want to prove myself by myself. And I'm my biggest weakness. There's no safety net, and tells Jay Lethal to tell his old friend to come to Dynamite next week. So this was that friend that they referenced in the attack by the garage last week. So there's some mysterious friend from Darby's history that they are going to bring next week. That is sort of the story here. And Lethal, Dutt, and Satnam Singh just state that they're going to deliver a beating to him next week. And that was that. Kind of got the point.
Yet more mystery. Who is this friend? You know,
who's the friend? Who's the friend? Who's the mystery ROH champion?
Yeah.
Who?
Well, I'm assuming these are all the answers to all of these questions are people that we have at least heard of in the wrestling space. I don't know who's a former friend of Darby Allin. I'm not on his Facebook or his MySpace, so I can't really see. But like, who would be a big enough name for this reveal in Darby Allin's history?
Nick Wayne.
Are they former friends? Would Nick Wayne do this?
Well, they're current friends, I would assume. Your Pacific Northwest lineage.
I don't know. Well, keeping us guessing.
Maybe it's I don't know. Someone from Evolve.
Gabe.
Not going to be Gabe. I don't
Probably
think it's going to be Gabe.
Yeah. Oh.
Baltimore. Chesapeake Energy Center.
Oh, goodness.
Main event, Jon Moxley and Penta for the AEW Championship. They recap Penta defeating Villano 4. So that's what you lost tonight. That could have been the match, everyone. That's what Penta cost you. So Penta gets suplexed into the corner. Moxley is biting and tearing away at the mask. He was having his own Ruleta de la Muerte tournament here. And then there's a package pile driver that gets stopped. Moxley hits him with a cutter and then gets the bulldog choke applied. And Penta escapes. And the announcers state that he undid the clasp on his mask to escape the hold. Now, we never got a close-up of this, so I took their word for it that that's what he did. But he just got out of this, so sure. I don't know if that would stop as a chokehold. Oh, he undid his mask. I'm going to release the hold now.
I did not see a close-up shot of this.
That was probably Alberto Del Rio's strategy when he fought Mirko Cro Cop, was if he gets a hold on me, I'll undo the mask.
The unclasping defense, one that
he never saw that kick coming. Then Jon Moxley is staggered on the steel steps on the floor, and you see Penta on the apron. I was like, oh my God, please don't do this. He runs the apron, and he's going for a Canadian destroyer off the steps, and thank God Moxley blocks him and just hits a DDT onto the steps. That would have been the end of Moxley if they had tried to complete this.
Some next generation kid out there just saw this and is making it a challenge to safely, successfully pull off a Canadian destroyer in the same fashion. I'm sure.
So the DDT is hit, package pile driver for a near fall by Penta, and then he comes off the middle rope, kick to the gut, 2 Death Riders, and Moxley pins him in 12 minutes and 18 seconds. Okay match. I don't think it would really reach to me the next level. But the audience got into several of the near falls, which for a kind of cold challenger in Penta is probably the most that you can ask for here. It was fine television main event, serviceable match. Serviceable. Yes, it worked.
I thought it was like, I think of the standard that you would expect from a pairing like this. You know, it was hard hitting, and it was very engaging for this audience. Ultimately, it was a good, fun exhibition match to close off a Dynamite.
And ended early, so you knew you were getting some angle at the end, because this never happens on Dynamite. They go right to the last second.
Yeah. It was a good way to close off the show. What's your feeling about like getting back to the debate of like kind of throwing out like cold title matches like this? Do you like the idea of at least like a Rampage finishing this way? Because I guess the alternative would be if you wanted Jon Moxley to headline a Dynamite, for instance, put him in a non-title match. Then you might have people complaining, well, why don't you just put the title on the line to make us care about it more? What do you think would be the better thing to do?
I didn't have as big of an issue. Like, I think sometimes it kind of gets just like blown up. Like, it was a couple day build for a championship match. And I think the more they've gotten away from these rankings, I think they're giving themselves the latitude to do this. And I think the audience is going to as well. And yeah, I think part of this was like, this was a sexier main event by making it a championship match than a title eliminator. And I think they're going to use that to their advantage. Like, it's, I don't hold making every title match has to be of this great standard. And, that was, at a time when in the Attitude Era where, man, you would get title match. Like, it was always title matches. Like, they were never doing non-title matches. It was only in later years that they kind of pulled back on those. But yeah, I think part of this was just to, give a more compelling main event than a title eliminator.
Yeah, but then you'll have the argument about people saying how like this kind of gives away the ending, because a title change is unlikely to take place with a 2-day build. But it calls to attention like who AEW is after. Are they after the audience that is already watching anyway, that will watch regardless of whether or not this is a championship match? Are they after that section of the audience that will only pay attention if they know it's for something significant?
Yeah, I never fall into that where it's, to me, like that's on the performers then it might be a foregone conclusion, but I've watched countless matches where it's like, there's a moment in the match where they get you. They are able to do something and it gets people like, oh my God, Penta might win. I don't think that's like this impossible hill to climb in some of these matches.
I feel like though that's within reason. Like on a 2-day build, I just don't know what they could have possibly done, to make you suspend your disbelief, especially when they're in the midst of this MJF program with Moxley. But anyway.
I mean, did anyone really believe Hangman Page was winning the title a few weeks ago? I mean, or last week, I should say, like injury aside. Like, I don't think everyone knew what the main event is for Full Gear. This match is it's a TV match for the title. But to me, that did not hurt the audience. It didn't hurt the enjoyment of the match up until the end.
You at least had story and you had promos building up to it, like to the point where I feel like you could suspend your disbelief a little, certainly more than tonight. But
you're going to run into that in a championship that, like, this is a title they don't flip around. Like, they don't, like, outside of the Punk and Moxley stuff over the summer, like, this is a title that is very well protected and that means, you're going to want to have your champion on television. And I'm sure they leaned on the side that a championship match is going to be more enticing than a title eliminator.
Yeah.
And you weren't going anywhere either with the title eliminator. I didn't sense much of an issue with it. The angle afterwards, the Firm comes out and they attack Jon Moxley going against the orders of MJF. Stokely comes out to watch. Then security follows. They get beaten up and they cut to the back. And there is Alex Marvez in front of the Blackpool Combat Club's locker room that has been chained shut because they've been having their team meeting and now they've been locked and cannot come to help Jon Moxley, which I like that detail that they added in here because it would have been a glaring hole to not address. And Moxley is trying to fight them back. Ethan Page drops him with a boot. MJF comes out and he's conflicted. He doesn't know if he should help or not. Runs down and he ends up stopping the attack and he fires Stokely Hathaway, leading to Ethan Page nailing MJF with a boot and the Ego's Edge, and ends with Morrissey, W. Morrissey, lifting up lifting up MJF and choke slamming him through the timekeeper's table. And that is how the show ends with MJF. So whether this is a full split of MJF from the Firm or one of those stories where MJF is going to turn on everybody and they were all doing this for our amusement and MJF just had himself killed on this show.
So again, because this is MJF, that might be the first inclination, is that he's still going to turn on us at the end. I feel like this was
I hate those angles. Like if this is, the Firm, we were all working together to do this. I just had them murder me.
Well, the fact that they shot this angle, I think is deliberately done to take us off that trail, and I think I trust MJF enough to be able to tell us a story that makes sense, that isn't simply like, I let these guys beat the shit out of me just to kind of trick you, Jon Moxley. I feel like I give them a bit more credit, to come up with a reason than that, and for that reason I'm that much more curious about where this is going. Is this an actual babyface turn for MJF? And if so, what is the sort of end goal of this? It's again, very intriguing to see them go in this direction and seeing how they might get out of this with something satisfying.
Are you intrigued by just the direction of MJF right now, or like, is this enhancing the Moxley match that is the match that they're selling? Because, this was discussed, like, Punk and Moxley, they kind of deviated away from your traditional build, and you didn't even know the match until the end. It was also like two baby faces going into that match as well. Like, would this be stronger if we just had MJF as your despicable heel, Moxley as your beloved babyface, or is this like they're trying something different here, where they're kind of going for that? Like, is MJF a babyface or not?
Yeah. I'm interested just because to see how they'll tell the rest of the story with MJF. But I understand what you're saying in that it's a very sort of MJF focused story that might kind of take away from the rivalry and the grudge that he has personally with Jon Moxley. Now we're kind of being distracted by MJF versus the Firm and how he might get revenge on the Firm. Is MJF truly, trying to trick the audience? When the focus prior to this was strictly between the two and their hatred for one another, does this kind of take away from it? Again, I have a lot of faith, in both Jon Moxley and MJF in order to for them to tell us a pretty cohesive story by the end of it. I'm still probably of the mind that this is all somehow being done to Swerve. How they explain the post-match attack tonight, they'll have to come up with something probably quite creative. But there's still time. What are we, like, less than 30 days out? 2-3 episodes, right?
3 more episodes of Dynamite.
Okay, so there's still a lot more story to be told.
All right, that was Dynamite. I thought overall, some very good wrestling on the show. I thought Danielson and Guevara was my match of the show. The tag match was very solid with Swerve and Our Glory and FTR. I really liked what they did with Claudio on the show. Hayter and Riho had a nice match and a perfectly serviceable main event with Jon Moxley and Penta. So I thought it was a very good wrestling show as well.
Yeah,
things you can quibble about. I do feel overall, and it feels like both shows right now, I think I'm just kind of overloaded with like the interference and stuff behind the ref's back, in front of the refs. It just seems like both shows are just going overdrive on it a lot, that it's just that stuff's jumping out at me a lot on these programs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we're just like so used to wrestling being built that way, John, like when you have a bigger match to build to than the match that you're currently seeing on TV, you always have to try to direct the viewer's attention at the end of the TV match to what you're trying to push on the pay-per-view. And oftentimes it's done through distraction and DQ finishes, or not DQ finishes, but in AEW's case, but interference. I thought it was a good addition of Dynamite. Solid in-ring content. Star power was there. So
and the elite stuff is going to heighten a lot of interest for the show. I think that's going to have a big effect on interest the next month whenever they pull the trigger on the reveal of them and what they're doing at the pay-per-view beyond. Like, I think that's going to really give AEW a boost now that they're moving on to the next phase. And, and with Punk, it's sort of just like when the next shoe drops in that sense, like if there's an end to the relationship or just, reassessing things. Like, he's hurt, so it doesn't really, there's not much to speed up otherwise.
You need a surprise and you need an attraction for, like these 4 times a year special pay-per-view types of shows. And if it's not going to be a debuting wrestler, then let it be the people that, we haven't seen for a couple months now.
All right. Let's go to your super chats and feedback.
Yeah, we got one super chat here coming to us from Corey, who sends $5 just to say, I'm a longtime patron. I love the show. Keep doing what you're doing, and happy 5 years. Hopeful for many more. Thank you so much, Corey, for not only being a patron, but also for the super chat, just to, send that very nice message. We've heard, we've been getting a lot of great messages, in fact, from a lot of people. And of course, you can get yours in via audio as we're taking voicemails now at memo.fm/postwrestling. A lot of them coming in, and you might hear them in some of these, little snippets before and after the shows on the audio version of the podcast.
Yeah, let me tell you, just getting all these memos in and just to listen to them, boy, it just brings your mood up to what positive affirmation.
It's the total opposite of reading some.
I want to keep these voicemails just going year round. I'm going to do this instead of Twitter. It's way better.
Yeah. Just, we should just have a comment box, but only like receiving positive comments.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Forum.postwrestling.com is where we go. Saeed from Vancouver starts us off. Was watching with a friend that doesn't really watch wrestling. When FTR came out with the big pop, he said, man, people love them. And then the Acclaimed music hit and said, never mind. They like them a lot more. I somehow had to explain the scissoring. Another wonderful promo by MJF. Very fun show. Match of the night for me was Swerve and Our Glory against FTR. And my friend's favorite match was Sammy versus Danielson. He couldn't take his eyes off the TV and the picture-in-picture during the ad break. He did ask to watch again next Wednesday. We've got a new fan.
All right. Congratulations.
Recruiting. So there you go. I'll add one to the Canadian ratings tomorrow.
Fantastic. We got a Cody from Maine up next who says, my biggest question coming out of this show is how long does the firm last from here? Without MJF as the star of the group, its future is very much in doubt. I will say they're left with some intriguing options though. A, let the group die out relatively fast after MJF and the BCC get their revenge. B, try to elevate Ethan Page or Morrissey to a permanent upper card position. C, find a new leader. Do you see any of these options, any other options for the group? If not, which of the three do you find more likely? And does anyone spring to mind of who could join the group as their new star? I will say, like, I immediately kind of like looked at sort of the layout of the group when the group was announced, and I definitely sensed a bit of sort of I don't know, sort of unnecessary placement for an Ethan Page, somebody who's a tremendous speaker, in the same group as an MJF, somebody who is also a tremendous speaker. The two of them are of a similar stature. Where would Ethan Page's place have been in a group with MJF and Stokely Hathaway for that matter? I think moving MJF out of the group opens the door for an Ethan Page to assume, if not a full-on leadership role, then at least a semi-leadership, sort of like, maybe second in command next to Stokely type of role. I think he's talented enough to pull that off. What about you, John?
I would focus on Ethan Page. I don't like the idea of just like throwing people into this group. This group is not even established yet. I think that there was a great introduction and very poor follow-up, and I would be remiss, I think, for most people to be even able to name all the members, much less any chemistry that they've demonstrated, like of like these individuals like that have all come together. Like, what do everyone, like, there's so much to do just with the pieces you have. I wouldn't want to be adding more. Ethan Page is a more than capable person to build it around. Promo wise, I don't think you need more to water this group down that already does not have an identity on this show. It's like they've done a few big angles with them, but nothing to me that has established them as a big part of the show. So it's important that they follow up on this with something next week and we don't miss them for 3 weeks and then they're back.
Do you feel like when the firm was established that this was always part of the plan, John? Or do you get the sense that maybe this was a change of direction at some point over the past month and a half or two since the group's arrival?
I would imagine that they've, like, I am sure that there has been some adjustments based on the reactions that MJF has received. Like, I don't know if they would have necessarily believed that he was going to be getting such positive reactions wherever they go. And do you run with those? Do you fight them? They're clearly not fighting them. They're in fact encouraging them now with the line about Newark being in his backyard and trying to encourage that for the pay-per-view. Like, they want him to be a big babyface at that pay-per-view. And whether it's all to, pull the rug out at the end, or it's like, man, we always talk about how hard it is to build up babyfaces. If you have this overwhelming babyface star, like, why go against that? And that's when you do make changes to plans. So I could certainly imagine that this firm idea has probably gone through some iterations, because it was a front burner angle, then it was sort of just, we're never going to have any interaction with each other. That was established. It's like, you're never going to see us together. And then they're constantly like butting heads with each other, and now you do a breakup angle. It seems like it's probably gone through some adjustments along the way.
Popping up in GCW. No
which
mention
has
ever
never
of that.
has never been referenced here, even though it works in storyline wise to their big angle or big story. Jesse from the 6, an entertaining Dynamite as ever, but I was disappointed that Hangman got nothing more than a passing mention on commentary. It bothers me both on a moral level, and that was a very scary incident last week, and on a storytelling level. It's not enough to just promote matches and events. You have to spend some time reflecting on them. Make it feel like we saw an important match like last week. Don't just move on to the next thing. AEW has a real problem letting anything breathe. Tonight we had a world championship match and it didn't feel important at all. I can certainly see I guess you go I will say this, if they had not put that statement out last week and Hangman had not commented on it, I certainly would have been more so on Jesse's side. I think that they believe that their audience at least is aware that he was okay. They got this statement out, but that's still, there are probably people that tuned out last week and are not following like AEW social media. And I think like you at least
I wouldn't say probably, John. I would say definitely there are people, of the million people that watch on TNT and more on PVR afterwards. I have to expect a good portion, if not maybe a majority, aren't on AEW's Twitter.
Yeah, well, then it's an argument that, listen, that's how the show went off the air, that you could have certainly, at the very least, just showed Hangman's message. Like, that takes 10 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I feel like this will, by the end of the year, be sort of like my, one of several chief criticisms I have of AEW television. And it's that they seem to be a show that I think is very much built on what is on the rundown. It's as if like Tony Khan is booking the show based off of the match card that he's writing up, maybe at a Jaguars game, on the back of a piece of paper, when he's supposed to be paying attention to the football game. He's writing down, what are the matches I want to see? What are the dream matches I want to book tonight? And then just kind of throwing it out there on TV. And the TV show kind of reflects that. It's usually just action. And we do have some great like in-ring segments, but I think that's only for like the top certain programs. I think there are like some real like television production basics of just whether it be using video packages or like showing some of the tweets in discussion over the past week that for all his faults, I think the Kevin Dunn style of television has been able to like nail down really well. And maybe AEW, as a response directly to the WWE, completely does not want to do any of that. But I think at this point, it's apparent that the show will really benefit from some of those production elements. We go up next to this person whose name is MVP Film. Okay, so it's a lot here. Another very strong edition of Dynamite, with the show feeling like it has been back in the groove since the 3-year anniversary show. Swerve in Our Glory versus FTR was phenomenal. A fun main event, and Guevara versus Danielson delivered more than expected with the match, putting in big spotlight on Sammy again. Gotta say, I think Renee Paquette's introduction to AEW programming has been a success. Nothing groundbreaking, but her personality shines through her backstage segments, and she feels much better suited for it than Alex Barbez or having Tony run from commentary to the backstage area. I agree. I thought they used her too much tonight.
It was a lot on the show. Like you have, I think you could spread it out a bit. Like it felt almost like jarring. It just seemed like the one where they go from backstage and we come back, she's out in the arena. But I mean, to be fair, I think we kind of just got used to Tony doing this as well. Like Tony was all over the show too. Maybe they could spread it out a bit more. But it's a small thing. But it was, it was a lot of segments tonight.
You want to go up next?
Bryan in New Jersey. Another focus show with a lot of strong wrestling tonight. My favorite moments may have been Claudio's finishing sequence, taking out all of the JAS en route to victory, and Bryan Danielson hitting a poison Rana, then doing the Nick Diaz flexing as he made Sammy pass out for the win. Main event was solid, but lacked drama given where things are going. The firm attack at the end was straight out of the Attitude Era and mid-2000s TNA, and a few Dynamites of the past, but I like the extra touch of showing the Blackpool Combat Club's dressing room locked to explain why they couldn't make the save. If MJF is going face out of this, I hope he doesn't change too much.
The nice touch to me was like, Claudio suggesting the meeting in the back earlier. Like that to me was.
I like that. Yeah, there was a reason they were all
nice
still
detail.
there at the arena, and they were all in a room together. And they did not have Regal on commentary too. He was in the meeting.
That's right. Finally, we got a Muggin who says, Friedman not shying away from the surprisingly positive reception tonight almost had me buying it. I bet at Full Gear he's going to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, even with the firm attacking him and Moxley. It was a strong episode with very good matches. FTR and Swerve in our glory set up the tiebreaker versus the Acclaimed. I was pleased with the BCC's clean sweep against the JAS, despite their ongoing issues. Claudio's hot tag offense was reminiscent of that string of offense from his WWE run, and the main event between Moxley and Penta was well done. Does anyone see Adam Cole, health permitting, face off against Jericho next week? He's the only 3-time ROH champion.
I would totally not do that match unannounced on a week's notice for Adam Cole's return. 100% I would not.
And the fact, like, to me, they pretty explicitly said that it doesn't have to be a Ring of Honor former world champion tells me that you're not going to get a world champion.
No.
So yeah, I wouldn't do that either.
All right. Thanks everyone for the feedback. Lengthier show tonight, but thanks to all of you that stuck along to check out all of this. And Andrew Thompson for joining us as well. Follow him at @ADThompson __ and all of his work. Andrew Thompson interviews on YouTube and at postwrestling.com. He will be there Saturday, November 19th. Tickets available. postwrestling.com/live. A few VIP tickets left, and then general admission tickets also available there. And send in your voice your voice memos, your memories, your insults. You can insult us too. memo.fm/postwrestling. And there you go. So some great ones that have been coming in. So the bar is high. The bar is high. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, we have a very creative audience. I know that.
So Wai and I will be back Friday night for Post Wrestling Cafe members, postwrestlingcafe.com, where we will be chatting SmackDown and the big one, Matt Taven Wardlow on Friday nights.
Also, the latest edition of Ask Away is up there right now for all Cafe patrons. Also, all YouTube members. John and I answered a lot of your questions about a lot of very good questions. As John mentioned, we were asked about our thoughts on the 4 pillars. 3 years into AEW's existence, we discussed whether or not Paul Levesque's new regime change has helped everybody and who has suffered from it the most. We also talked about time travel, a topic near and dear to John Pollock's mind.
Yeah, I wish we could go back in time and re-answer it. So that's all part of the latest Ask Away mailbag show up there at postwrestlingcafe.com. So go check out that and all of the other shows to come this weekend. The NWA podcast will be live this Saturday. WrestleNomics dropping on Sunday. So go subscribe, postwrestling.com, and leave us a thumbs up here on the video. Subscribe. That's your toll at the end of this video. So that is it for us. Thank you for watching Rewind-A-Dynamite, and we'll speak with you later this week.